Let me answer your question with another question. You want to see me drink this guy? Hello, everyone, and welcome
Doing
to a
this
brand
shit again.
new episode of Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray. I'm living up to the name, Jen. How can we truly be bizarre if we don't commit to the bit?
My contribution to the bizarre is the fact that committing to the bit of something I said when I first started recording videos with you, that my backdrop is going to change every episode, even slightly. If you watch all these, you will not see the same stuff behind me any single time.
Our last episode, in which we talked about BioShock Infinite and its infinite problems. And we also talked about the latest show from Shinichiro Watanabe, Lazarus. And this time, we are covering the insanely strange pairing of two pieces of essential 2010s comedy asterisk after comedy with one of these, and that we are talking today about the series Dragon Ball Z Abridged from Team 4 Star. And we're also going to be talking about Paul Feig's Ghostbusters. And my recommendation this week was, in fact, Lady Ghostbusters. And, I'm just going to let you explain this choice, even though I have formulated my own theory as to why this was chosen. And I'm just going to say this much. I hope you expect retaliation.
All right. So I said when we went over it in the last episode that I picked Ghostbusters 2016, Paul Feig's Ghostbusters, Answer the Call, which is how it's being marketed on Netflix, which is where I watched this. They put Answer the
Ditto.
Call on the poster and on the title screen, which is
Don't want
very
to get it
funny.
confused with Frozen Empire, the stupidest subtitle for a film I've seen in a hot minute.
Frozen Empire. I'm trying to think of a good joke, but I don't have one.
There isn't one, and it's a comedy. I'm already angry, man.
The heady reason that I wanted to talk about this movie is to revisit a very particular time, because if you were around when this movie was announced and during its marketing and during its rollout, and especially if you're around our age, this movie changed your life and changed the way that you thought about the world if you knew that it existed, whether you ever saw it or not.
Yeah, yes,
Because I was in the YouTube comments sections when this trailer dropped,
we
just
both
because
were.
I was 15, 16, and thought the idea of a Ghostbusters remake was at least worth looking into.
Yeah, I mean,
And dear God, how the universe has punished anybody that thought that way.
fuck you and your optimism, bitch.
Ghostbusters 2016 is the ultimate example of a movie whose think pieces outpaced how interesting it actually was tenfold. Same with even, I think I would even apply this to BioShock Infinite in certain
Yes,
regard, where
yeah,
the critical conversation around it immediately interested me more than anything that was going on in the actual art. And that's
100%.
not to say that this segment is secretly about the YouTube comments section of the trailer for this movie or its connections to Gamergate or anything. But I feel like that's all important window dressing that we do need to talk about, if anything, because I think it could be cathartic to do so in 2026, because it's easily been 5 years since anybody has thought about this movie that
God, yeah.
wasn't there when it came out writing about it. Because this movie really was when, I mean, this is something that we talked about last episode, but this is when the narratives of Gamergate migrated over to the film world. And it is when reality began to collapse
The
on the
culture
internet.
war became officially mainstream with movies like Ghostbusters 2016.
And that's not to say my big bullet point takeaway from the experience of actually watching this movie was that all of this was blown completely out of proportion.
Oh my
But that's
God.
not to
Yeah.
say that there weren't people there who were willing to see through the BS on both sides, because
Yes.
the half in the bag episode about this movie is still one of the funniest things I've
Yes,
ever
it
seen.
is.
Because you're
Yes, it
seeing
is.
three completely normal guys approach this movie from a completely normal perspective, but because of the psychic burden that this movie implanted on the rest of the internet, it feels like you're looking into a portal into another dimension
Where a completely different reality and culture like
where the
fostered
movie
that
is the
video.
same, but the culture that spawned it, well, the culture that it spawned didn't exist, right?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
half in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bag episode about this movie is what would have happened if the whole Gamergate side effect collision hadn't occurred. And on the
Yes.
other side of it, you had people like, shout out to friend of the show, Esther Rosenfield,
Mm.
who saw through all of this BS with the way that the studio was trying to push back against the Gamergate guys by wanting to use the political mission of owning the trolls as a way to line their
This was
pockets, which is a
politically
thing that we still
codified.
have not been able to get away from.
This was politically codified instantly. Instantly. It took absolutely no time for it to happen. It was like, and because of the year, this instantly became a proxy war for what was happening in 2016. It
Yeah,
was
it became a
exactly
proxy
the
for the
same conflict.
election where it was like, well, and I've seen it. I've seen it out there. It literally became, if you won't support Ghostbusters, you must not be into like women's rights.
Yeah, you're not a feminist if you don't support it.
It was that compressed as a political issue where it was like, well, if you don't give your $10, then you must hate women. And it's like, I really do think it's more complicated than that.
Oh God, yeah.
Uh, but anyway, this is a segment about the actual movie. So
Unfucking fortunately.
my political rant about the ramifications of the existence of this movie aside, this is a segment about the actual film, Ghostbusters 2016. And my point of doing that and emphasizing that was that I knew specifically that it would grate on your spirit.
You know, it's funny you say that, Jen, because I halfway through, like going into this, I was like, all right, I get it. This is a show about trying to provoke strong reactions out of each other. So we're reaching for whatever we can grab to recommend each other that will get the job done. But there has to be like a spiritual reason. There has to be a connection we have to these things, or just an underlying purpose in their recommendation. And for like the first week before I watched this, after you recommended it to me, I was like pondering endlessly what could be the purpose of something that has been so exhaustively discussed, that has been like, there has been such a solidified moratorium on this movie that, yeah, like I would even say that people thinking about this movie in the last 5 years is still a gross overestimation. I don't think people thought about this movie like past 2019, if that even. And it wasn't just because Afterlife and that other fucking movie came along to sweep it under the rug. And I want to go on record. I haven't seen those movies, but on an intellectual and spiritual level, I find them rancid. Like the idea of trying to resurrect a, you know, personality driven 80s sex comedy with sci-fi and practical effects into some Force Awakens generational fucking selling you back your own nostalgia to the point where we hired the literal director's son to make the movie kind of thing. It's just instantly gross, and I have no interest in it. It is
Well,
so
like
cynical.
Afterlife is cynical, but Frozen Empire is pessimistic because they
Oh,
immediately like got another director, brought in a bunch of new kid actors,
talent.
and plagiarized a bunch of stuff from the Ghostbusters cartoon from the 90s without
Oh, okay.
yeah,
But
shout out to J.
but
Michael Straczynski who went to the internet and was like, "Yo, they're
yeah,
using this character that I made
I remember
without
that.
like talking to me about this."
I
That's kind of
remember that.
crazy.
But like, so this is a long-winded way of me explaining that the notion of resurrecting Ghostbusters, but having it be this very like the SNL derivative cast, and the guy who did Bridesmaids is the writer director going on here. Like that to me is way more spiritually aligned with the original Ghostbusters than making a Force Awakens style reboot of it. And I want to be abundantly clear. I have seen the original Ghostbusters more than probably 99% of all other movies. It was a DVD that my mom owned, so it was just something I constantly watched as a child. That being said, I am in no way precious about Ghostbusters. The instant I knew what side I was on in the culture war was, in fact, this very instance when I saw people be like offended that Ghostbusters was like a joke. And I was like, what has this been to you this whole time? Like, why is this becoming this flagship for this weird MRA slash like nostalgia bait 80s thing? Like, shockingly, not the last time I'm going to bring Doug Walker up in this episode, but it was actually his take on it where I was like, yeah, actually, he's kind of right about this, where he was just like, why do you all care? Like, just really, like, there are reboots all the time, and they're always like bad, and everybody forgets about them. What is different about this? Yeah, there's ladies in it. Who fucking are they funny? And I was like, "Wow, Doug, that's actually quite clear-headed of you. That's an astute cultural comment that you
Yeah, and
made
like,
there."
and just to be as plain as possible, we sound like we're being extremely basic by handing it to Doug Walker in this
Yes,
regard,
yes.
when like really it was very misogynistic hate train that came down on all these
Oh,
actresses, especially Leslie Jones for the
oh,
obvious
for
reasons.
sure.
And
I
so when people in the same nerd spaces that seemed to be producing this culture war, when
mhm.
the figureheads, the people that are actually making the media that it seemed like were giving this personality type of voice, like James Rolfe and
Yep.
Doug Walker,
Oh
came out
God.
and were like, what the hell is going on here? I don't want to do this. I don't want to
Yeah.
deal with any of this.
Like
It seemed
James
like
Rolfe
radical acts of resistance at the time.
James Rolfe got like embroiled in legitimate controversy and harassment because he had the audacity to say, I don't really care about this and won't see it. And like, I'm not denying the fact that he was playing into a lot of talking points that were like icky, to be blunt. But my point here is really to say that like I observed this like on a cliff, watching these two sides fight each other, and I was just kind of like, I'm not trying to make a habit of becoming a centrist in any way, shape, or form, but I feel like we've lost the plot just a little bit. There is a way to say that Ghostbusters Answer the Call is another random Hollywood cynical reboot of an old property attempting to capitalize off of nostalgia, and also a weirdly unfairly picked upon thing that became a misogynistic fucking dead horse to beat that people like. And I'm not going to make any bones about this. One of these sides was objectively worse than the other, and it was the misogyny. And it's not because it was misogyny, it was because people made institutions around this type of content. People made livelihoods off of this nerd persona of pretending to care about these culture war movies and going on YouTube and telling a bunch of angry 20 fucking whatever something year old people that they were right to feel angry about. I don't know. The most recent one would be like, oh, the He-Man trailer has pronouns. And I'm like, why the fuck do you
What?
care about the He-Man trailer? None
What?
of you give a fuck.
I was just
That's
gonna say
that
the last time that this happened was the Snow White remake.
that's another one too where people
Because
just kind
right,
of be
well, and
like,
that's more so. I mean, this happens to every Disney remake because it happened with the Little Mermaid one too. But
yes.
Rachel Zegler just has a hive of these dudes following her around. But
And I
anyway,
mean, same thing with Halle Bailey, unfortunately. People were just very, very fucking weird about that. Meanwhile, a bunch of normal people were on the sidelines being, hey, why did this 85-minute movie get remade into a 2.5 hour one that looks like shit? And it's like, well, I can't really fault you on that one now, can I? And it's just, this became such a cesspool that the notion of me in 2016 even seeing this movie was laughable to me. I was like, why would I do this? Like, even then, like, this could, let me just say, this was a pre-Last Jedi world, and I was already sick of this. So you best believe that my feathers got ruffled in the following year. But like it became like and like YouTube as a platform became basically subsumed by it. It's why I think that red letter media are such a valuable like reference point for internet criticism is because they are so disconnected from the online ecosystem that you're right. They're just a bunch of regular guys giving their opinion. Sometimes they're a little bit fucking stupid, like in their Last Jedi video, which I still maintain is a deeply disingenuous read on basically the entire thing. But on Ghostbusters, it's just a bunch of guys who went in and were like,
this is supposed to be funny.
and it wasn't. And it's like there, I those are relate those guys are relatable to me in the way these weird cartoon avatar, I'm gonna make 9 hour long rants about how this terrible thing is terrible for no fucking reason other than to be a beacon of misogyny. So that sets the tone for this. So here I am thinking like this has got to be one of the most like picked apart movies of all time. Like I remember even still being in the ecosystem of people like Your Movie Sucks and Ralph the Movie Maker, and they would talk about stuff like this too. And again, in hindsight, it's like this was really low-hanging fruit for you guys. Like I've seen you all do good work in the past, and you were trying to capture the zeitgeist. You were just, it was for clicks. Like, let's be really fucking real about it. I'm not saying that they don't do good shit. They have. I think stuff like that YMS Lion King video is like fantastic. Like, I'm glad that that's such a popular thing because we need to stop the fetishization of realism like yesterday. That said, when approaching this, I was like, what can I say? Like, truly, everything that has been said about this has been said by someone else. I don't know what I can even bring here other than just evaluating this at face value, divorced from all of the culture war bullshit. And then I got halfway into this movie and I realized the masterful gambit that you pulled with this recommendation that no matter how much context I give, no matter how thoroughly I justify my opinion, I'm going to sound like the misogynists, frankly, because, okay, they're at the risk of becoming a complete parody of myself here. There was an episode of
They say
our,
wearing an eye patch not on their eye.
well, yeah, and this podcast's parent inspiration podcast versus Wolves last year talked about the first computer generated animated television show program Reboot. And in the following episode, they talked about the Netflix revival of Reboot, Reboot the Guardian Code. And in it, there was an astute observation made by one Mr. Super Eye Patch Wolf that I have kept with me because I thought it was such a valuable tool to describe something so specific that just I had never been able to put into words. That okay, so you and I, we inhabit a media space where we have an intensely curated media diet. And we're still people who like go out of their way to watch things that are bad and mediocre. We have like, not to toot my own horn, this isn't like a bragging thing anyway, just because it's worthless, but I try to watch a little bit of everything so that my critical faculties are as fleshed out as they possibly can be. But even still, there are people who travel in the circles that we do who are going to say things like, you know, Sinners is a bad movie. And if you take that at face value and you actually engage with what they're saying and they end up coming up with actually valid critiques that are not stupid Daily Wire shit, you can be like, okay, I can understand why you might feel that way. We clearly disagree, but we have conflicting opinions here. But there are things that like the curation of what we see, the worst thing that you have seen, the worst thing that I have seen in the realm of everything that exists, of everything that exists, the worst thing that we have seen is probably not that bad. But there is a specific kind of media that evades this curation, that just exists as pure facsimile, that exists just to exist, purely to take up space, to exist not as art, but as content. And the place in which this exists, John called the silent abyss. Ghostbusters 2016 is the first thing we have talked about on this show that I would breathlessly put into the silent abyss. Because let me just tell you something. I sat there with my wife and we watched this movie. We made it 10 minutes in, and Rhiannon looked at me and said, I'm going to keep track of how many times we laugh. And I would just like to point out, Rhiannon and I are very giggly people. I feel like you don't even really need to watch that much of the show to realize that I'm a giggly motherfucker. I like to laugh. It's fun. I like laughing at bad things. That's part of the premise of this fucking show to begin with. Not a single chuckle was uttered the entire time this movie was on from either of us. We made each other laugh occasionally. We'll take our own shots at things, but the movie, it is bereft of comedy. But there's a thing that exists when you're just like, trying to describe a bad comedy is very difficult. It's always like, because it's just like, how many ways can you say that something isn't funny? And it's different because I don't think Ghostbusters 2016 is a bad comedy because there isn't any. The writing here in this screenplay, I use that term very fucking loosely, by the way, and I have a reason, not just because, oh, I think it's bad, so it doesn't have a screenplay. No, this movie feels like it was purely outlined with improv, like, prompts that the cast were given in every scene, and then Paul Feig hit the record button and they riffed. And that's the movie. It's these people riffing on vague prompts. There aren't character beats. Story beats just kind of happen externally with the villain character in this movie, which, oh boy, I've got stuff to say about that shit. But like, there's no attempt to even characterize anybody in this. The first 15 or so minutes of this is a beat for beat recreation of the premise of the original Ghostbusters in a slightly different context of having these scientists who are kind of down and out on their luck.
Well,
And
and it's like, what if instead of Venkman wanting to, or what instead of Venkman being this sleazy scammer, what if they were all just losers who got lucky?
yes,
Is essentially the premise of this version of Ghostbusters. It takes away all of the like Reaganite sensibilities of the original
Mhm.
movie, where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna start a business so that we can scam people uh,
Yes. And I mean,
by
but that's
offering
the
our
thing. That's part
extermination
of the
services.
comedy. That's the
Yeah,
funny thing. They're Ghostbusters that dress like exterminators. It is supposed to make you go, haha, wow, that's shitty. Like, you're supposed to feel that way. And what's so fucking hysterical is this fucking girl power ass, girl boss feminism ass movie has these women in STEM as their main characters and they're all fucking morons. They're all so fucking stupid.
there's that
And
misogyny you were warning us about.
that's the thing is that why like I
The
think
trap has been sprung.
this movie is misogynistic. It's just not
Yeah,
misogynistic in the way that you think because when you go back and look at the original Ghostbusters, you see that all of these characters are like scientists and yeah, they're kind of like losers and they're kind of sleazy, but all of their characters are that they are intelligent. Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Bill Murray are all characters that use their wits at some point, and they are portrayed to be savvy. They just use that intelligence to be scamming douchebags. The characters in this do not behave as though they are scientists in any capacity. They dress like them. They vaguely might look like one in a given scene, but
they
there's no
occasionally say some gobbledygook
yeah,
that makes no
no, not
sense.
even they, just Kate McKinnon. Kate McKinnon will come on screen and say the flux capacitor deflargen flog, and
There's
then
an
you're just like,
inside out THX4 ghost over there.
yeah, exactly. And I'm just kind of like, all right. I mean, I guess that's the length of this, but like the comedy in the original Ghostbusters is intelligent comedy. It's like it's a lot of it's weird and some of it hasn't aged super well, but it is like, oh, these are comedy writers with a comedy background who are delivering sharp, succinct punchlines and jokes. And not to mention, filmmaking in the original Ghostbusters, quite fucking excellent, honestly. A lot of those practicals still really look impressive. Slimer's compositing, very, very good stuff. Like, I really enjoy the way that Ghostbusters, the original movie, looks. There's heavy shadows, there's gothic architecture. There is a genuine dread in that movie. Like, I remember the first time media made me existential as a child is that conversation Ernie Hudson has in that car where he's talking about, dead rising from the grave and like, they're talking about the Book of Revelations and then as a kid I'm sitting there like, that sounds fucking scary. I don't want that shit. And then you have this flatly shot, overly lit CG slop ass movie. There's no form to the filmmaking here. It is flat, medium shots, an establishing shot if they change location. It's lit all the same way. Every monster looks like they're plucked out of Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed,
Oh my
except
God, I wrote that down in my notes. I was like, this is a Scooby-Doo
look,
2
and
looking ass
honestly,
movie.
fucking Scooby-Doo 2's effects legit look fucking better than this one. And I'm like, I'm not saying that to be like,
That
oh,
movie
haha, this
has
older movie. Like, no, it literally does. Like,
that
go
movie
back.
has better filmmaking. I was
I
thinking about Scooby-Doo 2 a lot actually because I really do think that those two movies are
Yes,
chasing a lot of the same appeal.
it's no, you're exactly right. It's way more similar to that than it actually is Ghostbusters. And you know what? I do not inherently mind changing the concept of like what something like this is because you're changing it. You could do something new and interesting with it. That doesn't apply to the other reboot of Ghostbusters just because I think that's even more cynical and gross. But again, I am not opposed to changing what we know as Ghostbusters is because being precious about this IP or any IP is fucking stupid and you should feel bad if you've ever been that way. Frankly, you need to grow up. Like, sorry, that's life, pal. But man, like, I have seen each of the women in this movie barring one, be funny elsewhere. Kristen Wiig, funny in many things. Leslie Jones, funny in many things. Kate McKinnon, very funny on SNL on occasion. I'm sure Melissa McCarthy has been funny at some point in her life, and I just haven't seen it. But as right now, as it stands, can't really say she's ever tickled my funny bone. And oh God, the fucking wonton joke. Oh Jesus Christ. Every recurring bit in this movie fucking sucks.
They're
Every
not.
fucking one of them,
This is the
man.
thing, Jake, is that there aren't recurring bits. They're just jokes that go on for 3 minutes at a time,
Wouldn't it be
over
funny
and
if Melissa
over and
McCarthy
over
riffed
again.
about not getting the right takeout order, and then we did the same joke later, and then we did the same joke at the end, and it's just the delivery of the comedy here. Like I will confess, the comedic sensibilities of the original Ghostbuster way more in line with what I value in comedy, which we will be talking more about later in this episode, funnily enough. This is less my bit, but the thing is that I've become quite acquainted with the idea of improv comedy over the course of the last 5 years on YouTube. It's actually really taken off since the pandemic just because it was a venue for entertainment that could be easily accessed by lots of people. And I love improv comedy. You just have to be good at it, and you have to be like you have to want to work into it. You have to put yourself into it. There feels like there's too many restrictions here. They're still adhering to what they think a Ghostbusters movie should be because literally this is beat for beat just Ghostbusters 1, but the beats have no form. It felt like when I watched Phantom Menace for the first time in years, semi recently, and I was like, man, so much was said about this movie, but its biggest problem is that just nothing fucking feels like it matters. Everything that happens in this is just like, I guess that had dramatic gravity on some level, but I don't know how it affected anything. That's this movie. Whenever anything happens, I don't understand how it affects anything or anyone. There's no stakes, there's no tension, there's no nothing. And like, okay, you don't need these things for comedy. You just need to be funny. And like, I will happily lower my own bar just to be like, I'll get a funny haha. There's, guys, there's nothing here. There's,
So
I,
the thing that makes this movie uniquely terrible, which is the thing that I'm glad I get
it
to
is
say.
uniquely
I'm so
terrible too.
glad that this movie is uniquely terrible
It
because that makes
is.
it worth talking about on this show. Regardless of stripping, I wanted to strip away the cultural context and see if this movie was uniquely terrible,
Exactly.
and it is. And the thing that makes this movie uniquely terrible is that it thinks it's a Marvel movie.
What the hell is going on with the whole like actiony parts of this
There's
movie?
so many there's so much like superhero movie music in this.
Ugh. The
There's a scene.
reorchestration of the theme at the end, I was like, barf, this sucks. It's so bad. It's like, it's the epic trailer music version of it. And they're literally punching the ghost. And I fucking remember at the time, the people who were so desperate to hold this aloft and compliment it were like, oh, well, I like the new, like, gadgets and stuff. That is approximately 2.5 minutes of this 100-minute film. How can that be a major highlight for you when, first of all, it's barely in the movie. Secondly, it's just using an excuse to punch ghosts. Like, they
War
don't
slop.
solve anything creatively in this. There's no problem solving. And three, the gadgets are fucking boring. They just have a big light and then they kill a ghost. It's like, oh, it's an explosion. It's a grenade, but for ghosts. And it's like, why is this creative? Why is this enough for you? Ask for more. Like, this is not interesting. And if you're out here really saying that you think that this is interesting, buddy, I really think you're lying to yourself because it's not enough. It is not enough. Nothing in this movie has enough form to even really be good or bad. It just exists as it's like Ghostbusters feels like okay, I walk into a gas station and I want to get a Starbucks coffee or a thing of sparkling water here. I look at my options, I grab the flavor, and I'm like, okay, I don't like this stuff. I like this stuff. I'll get this. Ghostbusters is not one of the flavors I dislike or one of the drinks I don't drink. Ghostbusters is the shelf you place the drinks on. There's nothing about it that does anything. It's a dead movie. It is a philosophically empty piece of art. And I'm just like, I like all you got to do is make me laugh. I am a long time appreciator of fluffy ass rom-coms that are more commonly identified as chick flicks because of growing up with my single mother, and I have plenty of appreciation for those silly fluffy comedies. I will turn on 13 going on 30 right now and tell you that that's a spectacular little movie and that Mark Ruffalo is a total smoke show in it. What? I am not above this kind of movie, but this isn't a good version of that. It's not a version of anything. It is just people talking, and also like we we got to talk about Chris Hemsworth in this movie. This
Oh
is
my God. Is
this
this
is like
offensive?
I
Is this
I
offensive?
felt like it was offensive. Like I really legitimately, and not like to men. I'm not doing that. I mean like I genuinely am like, is this like a little ableist? Like a little? Because it feels like it is, spiritually speaking. This man is like clinically stupid. And that's the joke. That's it. You got him off of Thor to come in here. Chris Hemsworth, funny man, very charming man, charismatic man, one of our few genuine movie stars. And he walks onto this movie and he holds up a perspective Ghostbusters logo and it's a floating hot dog and a 7-Eleven logo. And I'm like, this is comedy so absurd it hardly exists. What was the thought process here? It is so weird. Like it wouldn't I wouldn't be weirdly attacking it from this angle if he wasn't like a weirdly infantilized character. It's just it feels kind of scummy almost.
It's a little, yeah, it is. It's a little creepy.
It's because he's big and muscular and hot that they get to get away with it because it's like, oh, people this stupid aren't attractive. Like that's what the joke is that it's like he's
It's
hot.
like when Goku is talking about how he doesn't really know what sex is.
Is that like a food or something? Like yes, yes, Chris Hemsworth, Goku, about the same level of cognition, but you know, one does things and the other one exists in this film to be possessed by the villain, which the closest I came to laughing in this movie is when the villain of the film is doing his villain speech and he's like, I'm going to pester them like they've never been pestered before. And I'm just like, okay, it is kind of funny that like the villain is so emptily petty that his goal is bothering people. Like that's a little funny, but it's not like there's no artfulness to that comedy. It's just like, yeah, and are you gonna do something with him? It's such a static movie. Like when I was done with this, I felt as though I couldn't rate it. It felt like I couldn't pass judgment on it. I didn't know how to. I lack the faculties to. Like, what do you
Okay.
say about this movie's story and characters? Like, I'm asking a question. What do you say?
It's an attempt. It's the first attempt in the franchise to be very regal and emotional about the idea of being a Ghostbuster because they have all this like thing remember this, isn't it so funny that Melissa McCarthy writes the first lyric of the theme song as a potential slogan for the
Oh, they
thing, but
made
then
the logo in the subway.
yeah, the guy graffitis the logo in the subway, and it's the Ecto One because my uncle runs a funeral home, not an enterprise. Rent a car, and uh, uh.
I
It's
and you
all
know,
like
Leslie
I
Jones
hate the
is
idea that
trying more than the other actors in this movie. That is the compliment I will afford the cast, is that I can tell that Leslie Jones is like putting something into her delivery, whereas everyone else is doing that weird riffing of just like, I'm going to talk like every single line I have is completely overwritten and speak exclusively in run-on sentences that go on for way too long so that you don't actually recognize that I'm not actually saying anything funny and you just get overwhelmed and then go, ha ha ha, they're talking a whole lot and using a whole lot of words, but they're not actually saying anything with the comedy whatsoever, so it actually just becomes grating after like 10 seconds. That's every joke, every
it's a
single
bunch of
one.
scenes where characters talk to themselves, and we as the audience are supposed to laugh because something they said is supposed to be funny.
And it's so boringly filmed. It's so boringly filmed. And the thing is, I fucking hate that there's this coalition of people. It's the same people that are like, oh, the Mario movie, it doesn't have to be good. It just has to, like, it's the same fucking thing where it's just like, well, it's a comedy. I'm like, Edgar fucking Wright makes comedies and he gets people like fucking Chung Hoon Chun to shoot them. That's not a fucking excuse. Like, comedy is not an excuse to be fucking lazy. The original Ghostbusters isn't lazy. Why are we using that as a cushion to excuse something for being poor? We should not let comedies, which, I mean, like, this is why the studio comedy as we know it is dead, is because they don't go for anything. It's so broad that it ceases to be, And it's like, I feel no incentive to try and make excuses for something just because it isn't super ambitious. You don't have to be ambitious to be foundationally solid. It is the bare minimum. This movie cost 180 million fucking dollars. And you're gonna tell me that they couldn't hire somebody who gave a little bit more of a shit about the cinematography. You're telling me that they couldn't have got like somebody who, I don't know, wouldn't edit this movie and leave in several flubbed lines in the final product?
Love
Come
it.
on, man.
Love it. What's surprising to me is how ambitious that this movie is. This movie has lofty heights for its want to be like, yeah, we're gonna make a cool action movie as well
Oh
as making a
yeah.
funny
Oh
comedy
yeah.
because they have all these scenes where it's like they're doing the test flight scene from Iron Man, but
Yep.
10
Yep.
times
Yep.
as
Yep.
long, and they do it twice, where they're
Yeah.
testing all the gadgets. And then the third act of this movie is such like CGI soup
Flop.
gobbledygook, where it looks like the third Ant-Man movie when
Oh
they
yeah, it
go into
does.
the wormhole and Kristen Wiig is having to reach to save Melissa McCarthy from being dragged into the ghost dimension by the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And it's like, what are we doing?
It's like,
What are we
oh, and then
doing?
it's the logo comes to life. Whoa, we're so self-reflexive. And it's like, about what? Is this supposed to be smart? Like, do you think you're doing something here? Because
Do you remember Boba Fett?
honestly, it was, I clapped when I saw it. That's the movie. That's just all it knows how to be. And it's crazy because, like, if you look at the alignment of people on this movie, it's like, the polarities of how this is received and how people react to it have switched since then. Because, like, I clapped when I saw it people are the misogynists now, and not the people who were desperately rushing to try and defend this like they were before. And I just think that's kind of fascinating and also way more ammunition for the misogynist being the worst of the two parties here. But I will confess, yes, the misogynist, far worse, far more material harm. Definitely. It's probably like an iota less pathetic of trying to attach your entire personality and critical faculties to a piece of corporate schlock.
Yeah, at
You
least
know,
they moved on to other things and like kept their rhetoric consistent. At least I believe them.
like I
I
believe that
believe what the misogynists
the
say
ones
about this
who
movie.
aren't grifters are sincere in their stupidity. You guys, on the other hand, I'm convinced that you're smarter than this. I'm convinced that you all are hoodwinking yourselves. And nobody, like, when I just want to ask a hypothetical question here to everybody. When has it ever been beneficial to pretend as though a piece of art was good when it wasn't? Because let's not do the thing where it's like, well, what if they genuinely enjoyed? If you're above the age of 18 and you watch this movie and you're like, yeah, man, this is good stuff. I can say that I can just kind of not take your opinion very seriously because you probably don't think very hard about it, and that's fine. Many people are like that, but this is the world of criticism. You brought that to me. This is my house now, and if we're in my house, we play by my fucking rules. And part of those rules is that you have to believe in something. Jesus. It's it's spiritually empty. I am so like I finished it and I just kind of was like I didn't expect this to be as demoralizing as it was. Like I thought the demoralizing part would be remembering the culture war stuff, but that's the only interesting things that one can even bring up about it because the movie itself is so staid. It's I mean, I felt my my villain origin story developing as this movie continued. I was like, Jen is an evil fucking genius. You have played 4D chess to get me to this point where I have to go on the internet in 2026 and yell about how this movie is bad. What am I doing with my life, man?
I got you, motherfucker. I'm very satisfied with myself right now,
You should be,
despite the
because
fact that I had to watch this movie.
you should be, because like I think I was ready to give this the full five at about 45 minutes in. I was like, if this much of this movie is as worthless as it is, there's no coming back. Like, this is terrible not just because it makes me remember one of the worst times to ever be on Al Gore's internet. It's also just terrible because it makes you look into the abyss and the abyss looks back. And you know what's in the abyss? Nothing. Void. Nothing at all. It is death.
Void, void, void.
Void, 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 void. Training begins now. But yeah, you win this round, fucking Dr. Evil. I forego my eye patch for you.
1 million Ghostbusters.
$1 million. How much, just out of curiosity, how much fucking money did this movie make? Because if I'm not mistaken, it was quite successful, was it not?
229 million, which was not as much as it should have made, but
Yeah,
it
I
was
was gonna
enough.
say that's less than I thought it would have. Yeah, I thought this would be like a 400 million ballpark type
It's
of
still
thing.
it was still very much a bomb.
Yeah, yeah. Especially for then, when, money mattered a little bit more.
I'll tell you where you're not
Safe.
safe.
My recommendation to Jen was Dragon Ball Z Abridged. And it's just like this piece of media is just so endlessly fascinating to me that I knew that talking about it with someone was an inevitability. We did like briefly talk about it when Luke and I did our video about just Dragon Ball in its entirety, just because we wanted to cover the whole spectrum, but we didn't delve into the nitty-gritty necessarily like I would have liked to, just because again, I truly think that Dragon Ball Z Abridged, this silly little parody show that was made on YouTube in 2008, I think this is one of the most fascinating pieces of art I think I've ever seen completed. And it has so much to do with context, but everything to do with its execution. Because I had you even heard of the concept of the abridged series? Were you even familiar
Oh
with that?
yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah, I was
Okay.
my best friend in middle school was like, you have to watch Hellsing Abridged. It's so funny, and I
Yes.
never did. Uh,
Helsing Abridged, notably, is also by Team Four Star, who are the team of guys behind this. And the abridging scene was a bona fide scene in the early days of content creation on platforms like YouTube. Because what people would do is that this was technically born, if you want to go way back, it was born out of the notion that in America, back when film distribution was, well, relegated to being basically international, and, you had to get videotapes of anime to be able to watch them at all, there was a group of people who would do fan sub translations of anime and they would hard encode subtitles into anime and then distribute them overseas in wherever they were that wasn't Japan. And this concept kind of evolved into making fan dubs, where you used your friends, your voice actors, or maybe even whatever writing to dub over the dialogue or maybe even change it in a specific anime. And what a lot of people did actually was a lot of prospective voice actors at the time would do something like this and put it in their demo reel. So they could be like, oh, this person can voice this person and this person and this person, and it can seem natural. And as this concept evolved, the abridged series became a thing. I don't know if it started with this, but the thing to popularize it was certainly Little Karibo's Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, which, to my everlasting shock, is still running to this very day. I had no idea, but they are still doing this. And if you look
that's
up,
frightening.
right? And Little Karibo notably is Frieza in Dragon Ball Z Abridged. So they go full circle with a lot of people in this community. But at the time, doing this was such a popular idea. Like if you go and look up on YouTube right now, just type in any anime abridged, you will probably find 5 to 10 attempts of people trying to do their own abridged series. The thing is, though, is that notoriously so many of these were like 3 episodes long because they became way too much work for everybody involved. Even at the barest minimum possible way you could make one of these, you have to have a voice cast, you have to have people who are willing to edit it. You have people who are like a voice cast that not only is willing to do that, but is also probably has to work for free. And, that's difficult, especially when you don't have all the people around you just, at your disposal. Most of the audio for these was recorded over Skype. That thing that we used to have before we're here right now with Zoom. You remember Skype? Because I sure fucking do. And that was kind of how that scene was born, is that people wanted to capture the sort of very mimetic early internet humor of Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, which was Yu-Gi-Oh! But with silly voices and reference humor and, making the show into kind of its own retrofitted thing. It's like comedy fan fiction is the best way that I can put it. And so a lot of people were chasing that tail. And then a group of friends who were all amateur voice actors in, I believe, late high school and early college, they all met on the internet and they were all doing their own things. Like the showrunner, editor, writer, and director of Dragon Ball Z Abridged, Scott Frericks, was doing a Lupin the Third Abridged. Nick Landis was doing a Yu Yu Hakusho abridged, and like they were working like this was a community, like full on. And then they elected one day to do Dragon Ball Z Abridged. And they got together and they were like, we can sort of build up our voice talent portfolio because we want to be actual voice actors. It'll give us a chance to talk about and play with characters that we really like. And the notable thing is that Scott Frericks, showrunner, was like, I will edit this entire thing. Nobody has to do any work other than just voicing their characters. And so they got together, they got a ragtag group of people, and they started making Dragon Ball Z Abridged. And one of the most notable things about this is that it was not the first, but one of the first to do synchronized lip movements with their original dialogue. That was normally not a thing that happened because that is insanely fucking tedious to edit. If you know anything about editing, holy fuck. Frame by frame in Sony Vegas was how this shit had to get done, and it took a long fucking time. So they were putting their best foot forward at the time, technically speaking. Like people were impressed with Dragon Ball Z Abridged because they're like, wow, all these different people are voicing these different characters, and they're actually following the plot pretty well because Abridged as a concept was meant to be a comedic take and an original take, sure, but it was also because anime had a lot of filler, and they wanted to condense that filler and excise that filler. And it's really funny because I believe Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is literally Dragon Ball Z without the filler, came out a year after Dragon Ball Z did, Abridged did, which womp womp. Damn. You know what though? It probably worked out for the best because Team 4 Stars YouTube channel has a cool 15 million subscribers. So needless to say, this became quite the phenomenon very quickly, and each episode took longer and longer to make. So Jen, you had not seen Dragon Ball before this and were for the most part unfamiliar with it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm uninitiated with most of the plot of Dragon Ball
You know what a
Z. So
Goku is.
I know what a Goku is. I know that Frieza cut himself in half. I know that there's several tall green men. I know that there are these things called Dragon Balls and you get a wish. I know that
Which
Gohan
have
is never
very little to do with the actual show when all is said and done, funnily enough. It's the
I
titular role.
and so I guess what I thought I would try to glean from this is that okay, if you know anything about me, if you spend enough time around me, you know that I'm a big fan of Let's Plays.
Yeah, yeah.
And an interesting thing about Let's Plays and the way that I get extremely heady about Let's Plays is that it's like, oh, not only is it a derivative work, but it's also an archival work. Because
Mm.
when I was in high school and I wanted to play Ocarina of Time, but I didn't have an N64 and I didn't know how to pirate games.
Yep,
How was I going to play Ocarina of Time?
you're
I
gonna
was going to
watch it.
watch Game Grumps. That's what I was going to do. And
Damn
so
straight.
Let's Plays and Abridged series become this kind of secondary way to experience the thing.
Exactly. And
It becomes an adaptation, not just like a fan work,
yes,
but an adaptation of its own.
you just said it. And with you being unfamiliar with Dragon Ball, it creates such a perfect opportunity to allow you to experience this in a vacuum, to purely judge it on its own merits without having the context of its adaptational changes. Because I think the thing that's notable about this, and the reason I recommended it in general, is at the end of the day, there is a certain point, for many people, it might be a different point in the show, but throughout the 60 episodes of Dragon Ball Z Abridged, there is a point at which this stops being an abridged show and just starts to become another dub of Dragon Ball. And you're like, when did I start actually becoming invested in what's happening? Because this started out like the first 10 episodes of this are very charming.
So the thing about the first 10 episodes is I thought, okay, this is cute. Some of the
Yes,
jokes
cute.
have, it's cute. Some of the jokes have not aged amazingly. Um,
There's a lot of reference humor, a lot of, well, that just happened. A lot of, like, oh, we're gonna make a Metal Gear Solid reference, even though I actually think that one's funny.
but
But, like,
it has what makes this show work so well on a basic level, which is that it has the pace. Is this
hmm
thing moves fast, even in its longest episodes. The jokes are coming a mile a minute, and scenes always just kind of start and stop very quickly and very abruptly. They're
hmm
really trying to rush their way through the plot. And so by the time you get to the end of By the time you get to the end of season one, which is like the 10th episode, you get to the end of the Vegeta stuff, and you get the. I didn't know this was like associated with Doug Walker, so when I saw the special thanks
Yeah.
to that guy with glasses.com, I was like, whoa,
Uh-huh.
what the hell?
And it's interesting you
Because it
point
was
that out.
hosted on his website, right?
Yes, they were people who like I don't think they were technically like affiliated, but like Team Four Star would show up at a lot of similar conventions that like Doug would show up at, and they were friendly. Like I think they would like cameo maybe, and like I'm pretty sure that Curtis Takahata 101, I'm pretty sure he's in like Suburban Nights or something, but regardless. The reason I brought that up when I recommended it to you on the last episode was because to me, Dragon Ball Z Abridged is the exact opposite of Doug Walker. It is working in a homegrown sort of format within a specific set of limitations. And then, like, I do think that you're so on point about the pace because this was back when you couldn't make a YouTube video longer than 10 minutes. So they were forced to condense every essential bit into these 10 minutes. And then once
Yeah,
the
10
like
minutes minus their opening and their credits, which they
so
would always
less
do.
less than that even. So there is a point at which around like the start of the Namek saga where those constraints are lifted and they don't have to make the episodes just 10 minutes anymore, but they don't really get a whole lot longer than that either. It's because they have such an iron grip on their pacing that they just kind of gradually evolve into longer episodes. And scenes start having more of like, oh, this is more than just joke, 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 joke. This is a exchange of dialogue. Like these are characters who are interacting with each other. And
Yes, it's insane how after the Vegeta arc, these characters start to feel like real characters and they feel like they're actually talking to each other.
and
It's
they grow into
wild.
their voices as well, very
Yes, they
strong.
grow into their voices and they grow into each character's kind of comedic personae on top of their dramatic personae. Because the best and worst example of this is the treatment of Vegeta
Hmm.
throughout this,
Yep.
where like they commit so hard to accurately adapting the character tone of Vegeta that by the time he comes back with his Super Saiyan powers in the Android saga and he's just calling Android 18 everything under the sun, I was just like, what the hell are we doing? But
Well,
what we're doing is we're trying to accurately portray this
Vegeta
character
is an asshole. Like,
being in over his head and about to get his ass whooped. And that's what ends up happening. It's like, oh, they're actually thinking about what's going to happen in the story and not just trying to write funny jokes, but trying to write jokes that contribute to the narrative arcs that the characters have. It's so bizarre because it's so different than like a Snap Cube dub, where
mhm.
one, you're
Love those, by the
deriving
way.
the work less because they're not like editing the game footage, they're
Yes.
reacting to it live. So it has a different look and feel and flow to
They're
it.
constantly catching up with the cutscene, like, and they're like fumbling, but that's part of the appeal is that their fumbling becomes funny.
Yeah, part of the appeal is that they're trying to keep up with the story and keep their riffs
Shadow, I love you.
they're trying to keep their riffs consistent with where the story is going, despite maybe like forgetting or not knowing to begin with where the story is going to go. But you get to a point in this where once Frieza shows up,
Hmm.
this feels like a real show.
Oh God, it's such a good introduction of a character too. This little fucking Napoleon space Hitler ass dude in his tiny little ship, and he's got his henchmen, and he's just like, "Hello there, my name is Lord Frieza," and he's just like, it's like, "Hello, baby seals, Dodoria, two or three more," and then you're just like, "What the fuck is this little guy's deal?" And he is petulance personified. And every time he's on screen, it's hysterical. Like Little Karibo's
Frieza
voice
is
performance,
hilarious.
great shit. And part of it is because as the show developed, the writing for it was a writer's room. Like I have watched the commentary of each episode of this show that they did years and years later to just get a better idea of how they put this together and what it was like. And at some point, Scott just is like, yeah, this became collaborative and we like, we butted heads. Like we had screaming matches about how to convey a specific character's arc or just a specific line choice or whatever. It's like they really did begin to agonize over every single decision they had to make, which becomes just at some point making a different show that happens to look like the old show. And you even like one of the most impressive things about this is that you get into the Namek saga and like midway through you start noticing like, wow, the sound mix on this is really clean. It didn't start that way. Like people's mics are noticeably poor, like varying in levels of quality, and it's like, they're kind of talking like this, and they sound a little bit muffled sometimes, and then some people are talking and they sound very clearly. Everything becomes super consistent. The battle sound effects, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Dragon Ball Z Abridged has better sound design than actual vanilla Dragon Ball Z does. Like, it's because Scott is able to crib, like, he gets sound effects from every piece of Dragon Ball media that has ever been created. Video games, shows, OVAs, whatever the fuck. And he can go back and put them in. And also, like, he'll go into like another common one was getting the open source sound effects for like Team Fortress 2 and putting all of those sound effects in there as like screaming sound effects or car crashing sound effects. And he's just like part of it is him just being like, do you know how fucking difficult it is to find Foley for a car hitting four bodies to make it sound right? Because it sounds easy and it's not. And it's like, wow, there's a lot of work put into this. And they start putting in like extra animation in the shots, correcting animation errors that exist in the old show. And like even wholesale putting in entire new scenes and dialogue segments in the Cell Saga. And you're like, oh, like there's work here. Like we're getting interesting soundtrack choices from various things and reorchestrations of the music from the original show. Oh,
It
okay. Like,
becomes it begins attempting to be impressive
mm-hmm,
in a way that it doesn't really do when it starts.
mm-hmm,
And that has its benefits and drawbacks because I think the thing that I'm going to say that's going to grate the most on anybody who's really into this
mm-hmm,
is that I loved the Frieza saga.
mm-hmm.
And after that, the show just kind of fell off a little bit
Oh,
for me.
that's a hot take.
The
That's a
Cell,
scorching hot take.
well, the Cell saga is like it's twice as long, and Cell is just
It
not
is.
as funny as Frieza is, but like the
Ooh.
androids are really funny. All three,
Yes.
16, 17, and 18 are an incredible like comedy troupe.
Yes.
But Cell is just not as funny. What I will give the Cell saga in this is that they've fully committed to giving all of this dramatic weight. And so Cell from beginning to middle to end has dramatic weight
Mm-hmm.
applied to not just his presence, but the idea that he's coming. Like they put in a teaser at the end of the last Frieza episode,
Yep.
or in the episode before Cell is going to be properly introduced, that like he's on the way and he's got this really funny beat where he's singing Mr. Sandman as he
Mr.
walks.
Sandman, bring me your dreams.
But he's just not as funny as Frieza. I hate to say
I
it.
respectfully disagree, but I understand where you're coming from. I do actually have a bit of not insider information just because this is like a well-known thing, but I think that I'm gonna be real with you. Cell Saga, one of my favorite things. Like, period. Like, there is so, like, I crib so much from this without even realizing it so often, and it happens. And I will say the biggest weakness of the Cell Saga. plotting. Has little to nothing to do with how Team Four Star actually end up executing it because they tightened the execution substantially
But
from
there's
the
only
original
so much
show.
you can tighten a story that's
Because,
already this wonky.
well, it's because Akira Toriyama, when writing Dragon Ball, was essentially writing this in real time. One of the best improvements that I think is made to Dragon Ball Z Abridged is that the battle between Goku and Frieza, it is punishingly long. I mean, holy shit. Like the
That's something that I
anime,
was expecting to run into. I was like, you know what? This fight with Frieza is actually pretty well paced. I thought everybody said that this goes on for like
it's because
15 episodes or
they
something
cut
like
out
that.
a lot. It's because that was when the show caught up to the manga and they were adapting rather than 10 chapters an episode, they were adapting like one. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's a problem. The pacing is bad. But once Toriyama moves past that and goes into the Cell Saga, Dragon Ball is way more popular now. Big, big, big more popular. And Toriyama starts getting a lot more editor's notes from his editor Torishima. When he introduces the two androids, 19 and 20, Torishima's like, this guy looks lame and this dude's old. Can you like make new villains? And he was like, what? What are you Sure, fine,
Tanjiro
whatever.
comes out of nowhere
Uh-huh.
in
And then 17 and 18, there he's just like, fine, he made two other androids and he goes to get them. And then they go, they get the androids, and then Torishima's like, they're just a bunch of bratty kids. Can't you get somebody more intimidating? And he's like, oh, for fuck's sake, fine, I'll make another android. And then you get base form Cell. And he's like, yeah, but he's like, he's too weird looking. And he's like, like, and he just eventually gets the perfect Cell. And he's like, there, are you happy now, asshole? Can I tell the story, please? And then they're kind of able to sort of like, I completely understand how approaching this wonky ass structure is just like,
because that's the thing is
especially when
that
the Frieza one is so straightforward.
as somebody that doesn't know anything about Dragon Ball and like hasn't seen the original show, I feel like I'm have the capacity to be more critical of something like this
And that's
when
kind
it
of why I wanted you to
slumps.
do it.
Yeah, when it slumps, because I'm like, I'm here for the jokes, but I'm also here for like the plot to still be
Yes.
concise and moving forward. Because with the way that they condense Frieza, like I kid you not, at the end of the episode when it's like, how many Namekians and Piccolo shows up, it's like one, and they
One.
cut to credits. I was like, oh,
They
they
have
actually like
pop-offs,
they
like
did
good
something
ones.
badass with this, and I'm buying into it because
Hey,
at this point I
like,
believe that this is who these characters are, and I'm not just like it's gone past the point where I'm like watching people do funny jokes over Dragon Ball, and
yes.
this becomes an emulation and an extension of Dragon Ball. And then
It's
I start holding it to a higher standard that the Cell Saga doesn't really meet. That was
and
my process of going through this, is like first 10 episodes, it's cute, it's cool, it's impressive to watch. Frieza Saga is like, okay, I'm actually invested in this
mhm.
as its own story, and it's doing its own kind of like feats of accomplishments in its own right. And then the Cell Saga is trying to do that again, but not as good.
The Cell Saga is a very different, very messy little beast. And I think part of my continued appreciation for it is that at the end of the day, it is all of the things I love about Dragon Ball Z's original Cell Saga, but with like way more fine tuning and way better pacing. So I have a different frame of reference that lets me appreciate it, but like it's still wonky. Like I'm not under any illusions about how this manages to like bounce back and forth. And frankly, neither are Team Four Star. Like all of them are. That's the funny thing is that they are still all intensely critical of not only themselves but like Dragon Ball. Like they love Dragon Ball, but they are constantly like, they are very critical of the fact that Toriyama he tends to introduce really cool badass female characters and then put a baby in them and then they just kind of become completely irrelevant after that. And they give some of the female characters a lot more to do, and that's kind of the secret sauce of the Cell Saga is that everything that faded into the margins in the show, in the original show, is now like an actual capitalized upon element. Like Chi-Chi, for example, in the original show, just kind of a nagging housewife. There's nothing that's like super compelling about her. And they play that for comedy for a while. But as you keep going, Chi-Chi is just like I want nothing more than just a peaceful family life. And I married Goku and I know the kind of person he is. Please don't make Gohan the same kind of person so that he always spends time away from me. And you're like, oh, that's sad. I kind of feel bad for this character I just thought was annoying in the original show now. And it's like it actually works. Like the thing I love about the Cell Saga is the dramatic components to me are just like Frieza has one really cool pop-off moment with Goku going Super Saiyan, and I think that Vegeta's death in that is actually like quite effective as like a lot of people don't like actually that Goku is the one to beat Frieza and Vegeta isn't because Goku is not like he doesn't have a bone to pick with Frieza necessarily. Like he just kind of comes to show up and beat ass necessarily. And I kind of like it because Vegeta has to it's an ultimate act of humiliation. It is
Yeah,
him
it's the
being like,
culmination of Vegeta's whole arc where it's like not
"Yes,
only does he have to learn to be a better person, but he also has to like eat a little bit of humble pie.
exactly." And that's why he's such an unbelievable bastard in the Cell Saga is because he's like, I have to solve my Napoleon complex. He becomes a Super Saiyan. It's still not enough. And not to mention, his son from the future is here and is a continuous disappointment to him. So he just ends up being like, you know what? I don't care. Like, it gets lost just because Vegeta is such a popular character. Vegeta does not stop being a villain in Dragon Ball until the end of the Buu saga. Like, he's a bad guy. He murders people indiscriminately in these stories. Like,
Yeah, like I
not cool.
one of my favorite just like uncritical dramatic beats in this is when he's fighting 18 and you see him just like blow up a car full of people.
I will kill as many people as long as you are one of them. It's so good. It's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I love how they also like several improvements being made. 17 and 18, oh man, so much better. They are boring as planks of wood in the original story. Like they are purely functional. These guys have to be defeated. In this, they're like bratty teenagers, but they have a legitimate sibling dynamic that's actually quite fun. And they have a rapport and they have Android 16 with them and they're just like, "Oh, buddy." And they
He's
like
kind of their
become
autistic son.
yes, literally like he's just like, "But I liked the birds." And he's just like, "Don't worry, buddy.
Yeah, and
We'll get you a bird."
I should say my favorite voice in this is Guru, and I
Guru
love
is
that
great.
Android 16
He
sounds exactly like Guru, and they very clearly
Yep.
did that because Guru dies right before Android 16
Y-
comes in.
You are 100% correct. All of Curtis's Takahata 101's voices are all of the fan favorite ones. He's Nappa, he's Cell, he's Guru, he's 16. He's the guy with the deep voice and a quite impressive one, might I add. Like that's the thing is that also by the time the Cell Saga kicks in, like I if I can count this as a dub of Dragon Ball, it's my favorite. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, the performances in it, like, fucking Nick Landis is Vegeta. I prefer to Chris Sabat. I think he's fucking incredible in this role. Like when he lets loose that Gallic gun at the end, that scream is nuts. Like you can tell he was just like, yeah, I damaged my vocal cords for months getting this one. Or that one in the Frieza saga that lasts forever that he puts the Doppler effect on that gets echoed in the Trunks movie. Like 40 episodes down the line later where he's talking to Bulma and then you just hear in the background the it's so good. That's that's kind of like the stealth best thing about the Cell Saga to me is that the reincorporation is like crazy thoughtful. Like Edgar Wright levels of we're gonna take this and bring it back and recontextualize it and make it funnier. Like it's kind of nuts how they do that in the three-part finale, like no less than 10 times, and it hits every single time. You're
I
just
think
like,
though, I think though at some point I start to miss the scrappiness and the novelty.
I
There's a
can understand
bit,
that.
there's a
There is a
bit in this,
grounded nature to the Frieza saga that is not quite there in the Cell saga.
yeah, and there's a bit in the Cell Saga that I think is really funny where 17 and 18 go to steal the van and they just have
Hmm.
the quick dialogue between these two truckers.
Hmm.
Still dead, Chuck.
Been 4 months.
And I'm just like, I want more of that, where just like you had to start from scratch, and the show
And
kind of runs out of scratch to start from, and so it loses some of its scrappiness for me.
that's
But I kind of
actually
appreciate that about the first half a little bit too much to want to lose it, I think.
Well, I mean, that's honestly like it's kind of the opposite of how I expected you to react, but that just kind of means that this went about as well as it possibly could. But the thing with what I love about the Cell Saga 2 that they are very outspoken about is that like episode 31 is such a big turning point for them because it's where the show stops having to be about just its plot. Like episode 31 is the one where Krillin tries to fake his death for insurance money, and then the chick who looks like Bulma comes back, and the turtle's like, "Why aren't you upstairs with everyone sleeping with your girlfriend?" Like that episode becomes a focal point because they get to just like voice these characters just hanging out. There is so many moments of downtime in the Cell Saga where people are just kind of like doing their own thing and a specific group of people where they'll have a specific bit of chemistry with each other that's actually like one of my favorite bits is the fact that like everyone shits on Yamcha. Everyone fucking hates that dude. Bulma says it herself. Nobody screws Yamcha but life. And it also has the darkest joke in the entire show is when Trunks comes from the future and tells everyone what happens to them. And it flashes forward to Yamcha hanging himself. And it's like, oh shit. And then like there's actually a beat that I love in that moment where Goku just kind of looks at Yamcha after Trunks leaves and goes, Yamcha, you're a good friend. And Yamcha just is like, oh, thank you. And that's what makes him not kill himself in the future. And it's like, oh wow. Like, and the same thing happens with what I love when there's actually like probably one of my favorite moments of writing in the whole show is when there's this exchange happening between Vegeta and Trunks, and it was I don't listen to bastards, and he flies away. And then Piccolo just kind of looks at Gohan and is like, hey, Gohan, you're a good kid. And Gohan's like, oh, thanks. Like, that's another relationship in this show. Really well. Like, everyone jokes about how Piccolo is actually really Gohan's dad. And that's kind of something that they capitalize on of him just actually being a better paternal father figure who ends up freaking out over his safety way more than anyone. And, like, that's a really sweet kind of thing. Like, there's that moment where he walks out of the hyperbolic time chamber and he's just like, "Oh, Mr. Piccolo, like I don't want to be like my dad. Can I have an outfit like you?" And then Nail is like, "Did our heart just skip a beat?" And it's like, "Oh." That's also an addition that is not in the show. Is Nail and Kami in Piccolo's head not in the show at all.
What?
That is a complete invention of Team Four Star, and it's so good. Like that's one of my favorite little bits is just them having rapport in Piccolo's head. It's great. There's also one of the most interesting additions is there's that scene where when they're taking apart Android 16, when Bulma and her dad are, and they like go back and look at his memories and look at his head, and then they uncover this little video of him talking to Dr. or someone who looks like him rather, of him talking to Dr. Gero and sending him this message before he gets murdered by a child version of Goku in the original Dragon Ball. And that's not in the original show. That entire thing about Jero building a robot that looks like his son because he's grieving him is a post hoc addition that they put in with that little animated window. That is completely original and not in the original show at all. And I was like,
That's crazy.
and it's like a really like, that's like, him looking like Android 16 looking like Toriyama had mentioned it in an interview, but just didn't put it in anywhere. And they were like, let's actually like incorporate this because it's supposedly supposed to be canon and it makes the story better. And they end up doing that. And they end up doing that with a lot of things where, because like Toriyama, Kubo was not the first of his kind. When it comes to retcons, Shonen has always been pretty bad about it. And you know what? I like that they kind of make fun of how power scaling and power levels in general are such horseshit in this
Point
show.
four Raditz.
Yeah, it's just they just measure people by the amount of power level they have in the Frieza saga, and it's great. Like it's all like Vegeta's got that famous line, the fucking just power levels are bullshit, and it's like I have literally always felt this way. Thank you, and I think the most impressive piece of writing in this show is unquestionably, in my eyes, Gohan. His character arc over the course of these three arcs is not only well built up even from the beginning, but also low key a little better than it is in the original show, if I'm honest, because
Everything I know about Dragon Ball Z is that like Gohan was set up in the first three arcs to be like the successor, and then that just never happened because I don't know, do they keep telling Toriyama that he can't kill Goku? Is that the
more
thing?
or less, yes, that's kind of the thing. It's kind of why they actually chose to end it where they did is because the Buu saga. You know how you found it mildly frustrating that the Cell saga is twice as long as the Frieza saga. The Buu saga is three times as long as the Cell saga. It
I
is,
kept waiting on Kid Buu to show up because that was one of the few things I knew about from when I was a kid was
uh-huh.
Kid Buu.
It's and that was like a big thing was that they initially were going to return for season 4, but like once they logistically wanted to like plan what it was, they were like, there's no way we can keep improving. There's no way we can make a better, because like they all like confess they're just like, another reason was that like none of us have like a really strong attachment to the Boo saga. So if we parodied it, it wouldn't come from that same place of love because the Boo saga is such a mess. So it's like, and there were people who were like really looking forward to that happening because, I mean, like everybody who is a Dragon Ball Z fan, like the Boo saga is like nobody's favorite. Like everybody just kind of knows that it's too long and that there's too much bullshit in it and that it needs to be restructured. But they were like, oh, they can go in and like fix it. And they were like, they're like, we were able to do this because we love this show, not because we love making fun of it. That's different. And it
Yeah.
also like the scale of the final episode is like that took them a straight year of work. Like Team Four Stars Patreon is the reason they were able to do that at all because he was just like, I'm being so serious when I say this. If I had a regular 9 to 5 like most people, this would not have been made. I wouldn't have made it past like episode 45. It would have died and it would have just had to have stayed there. So like they're very, very grateful to their fans, but they're also like
Yeah, it also gets to a point. It gets to a point where I was looking at the release calendar actually, and I thought
mm,
this was interesting. It gets to a point where they're only putting out like three episodes a year.
mm-hmm.
And an interesting thing that happens is that you can tell because
Yes, you
because the referential humor and the tone and the pacing just like completely changes every few episodes after a certain point. And that's also something that kind of took me out of it. Was it the first like mm, 35 to 40 some odd episodes. Basically everything up until the end of the Frieza arc and the Garlic Jr. stuff all feels like it's coming from a consistent point of view and sense of reference,
Oh
even
yeah.
when like time is passing and they're clearly incorporating more contemporary stuff. But when you get to the point where they're, and I do think this joke is funny, but when you get to the point where they're doing a parody of Steven Universe, I feel like I've left the cosmos that I started in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting choice there. I will say one thing that I think I really appreciate about the Cell Saga in specific is its grasp on tone. Like in a vacuum, it's just a like there are so many moments of that like specifically first form Cell where it's like, oh, this is terrifying. Like it's not terrifying in the original show, but like the way they play those first couple episodes where you don't really know what's going on, and Gohan is like, what's this time machine? And Trunks is like, I don't really understand what's happening here. And then Cell just sort of shows up. They build that up in the Team Four Star version way differently. Like you are constantly aware of Cell in the beginning of the Cell Saga in the original show. And then him showing up at 17 and 18 is not like a surprise like they play it for. And I think that their version is a lot more effective just because you're like it's just the suddenness of it really sneaks up on you. And like it suddenly feels like dire because the way that they play that is like I like 17 and 18. They're cool. And you know, 18's got some actually pretty decent chemistry with Krillin, unlike the original show where it just kind of comes out of nowhere. But they do that really well, and they've got all these little like moments, like that pop off moment with Piccolo in the Frieza saga is great. But my favorite one is definitely the like when he fights Android 17, us a fight that like does not mean much in the grander scheme of things, but is so like well animated and cool and features so many unique little ideas that it's like, oh, this is interestingly edited and like put together. But it starts that thing where like Piccolo starts holding his own because he fuses with Kami, and he's just like, what the hell happened between the last time I saw you and now? And he's like, he's fused with Kami. And he's like, what the fuck is a kami? And he gives them it means God. Now bow. And you're like, oh, okay, that was pretty hard. That was actually like pretty good. And they've got a lot of little moments like that. And honestly, I really think that the final episode, the three-part sort of finale of the Cell Saga, I think this is like a feat. This thing is a behemoth. Like this is a movie essentially. It's a monstrous thing. You have Gohan being built up as this little kid in the first part of the story who obviously loves his dad and thinks he's this cool hero guy. And then over the course of the Frieza saga, he becomes really disillusioned with the fact that his dad is not really that great of a dad. He loves him, but he clearly is like, hey, dad, you're gonna go train again and now you're dead. Okay. And so he becomes really jaded. And then they actually get to train together and they could develop a rapport. And he's like, oh, wow, he does actually love me. He does care about me because he's just built different. Goku is fight autistic. That is how he communicates with people. That's how everyone in this show communicates, except for Gohan, because he is a nerd. He's a pacifist. He doesn't want to do that shit. And then they basically have this zero sum game where Goku is like, I've actually been planning this entire time because I know I'm not going to be able to beat Cell, but Gohan's stronger than me. So if we put him between a rock and a hard place, he's going to go Super Saiyan 2 and he's going to beat ass. And they've got this like exchange where Cell is like, he hates Gohan. He's like, you're a coward because you're the only one of these people that doesn't want to fight and defend what they love. You're just sitting there doing nothing. And it's disgusting to me. And then he actually gets to fight him, and then you're just like, oh, I think Gohan, I think I think this boy needs to talk to someone because he's not well. And then that whole like thing where he kills him and then he comes back and Trunks gets murdered instantly. You're just like that cliffhanger in real time. That was a moment to experience, let me
It's
tell you.
something. It's real
It
cool.
and I love fucking like Trunks as a character just in general. Expert. Like I am not the type of person to really latch on to.
Kyle Reese is my favorite character trope.
Yes, like literally. I'm pretty sure Terminator 2 came out like 6 months before the Cell Saga actually premiered. So that was not a mistake. That was a totally intentional thing. And what I like, the thing with Trunks is that I've always been like resistant to the idea of latching onto the fan favorite characters just because they're like cool. Like that's just never been my vibe with characters in shows. Like normally I kind of find it a little try hard. But the way they play Trunks is that he's try hard. That is the point, is that he's compensating. He's like, I have this like, image of my father and these heroes that were all killed, and I have to go back and I have to impress them. Essentially, I have to prove that I'm as good as them. So he does the whole thing where he like chops Frieza to bits, and it's like it's such a cool character introduction. And then the entire arc is him slowly being disillusioned with the fact that like everyone's kind of an idiot. Most of them are losers, and his father is a piece of shit who sucks and fucking hates him. And he's like,
I
oh,
really
wow,
like Trunks' arc in this.
it's great. It's fant. And I mean, my favorite moment as a character for Vegeta is just the very end where he does the, my baby boy, he freaks the fuck out and does the whole like thing. And they're just like, for Vegeta, really? Like, really? And he's like, yeah, really. And then he get the just fucking he apologizes to Gohan, and then Vegeta's just and Gohan's like, oh, we are fucked. Like that's the one of the two fucks they don't censor in the entire show, and I'm like, that's perfect. And then the Super Saiyan transformation with like that song that plays, they hired a musician to do it, translated the Japanese lyrics from the original song in the original show into English so that people could understand it, and then revamped all of it. Like all of the music in those like final three episodes is original. Like all of that stuff is stuff that they got a composer to do. And that's
Wow.
like it's really impressive. It's really good. And like they wrap everything up super well in a way that I think is just it ties everything together a little bit better than Dragon Ball Z does. And like I hate like saying that in the sense that I think like, oh, they improved it. Because I feel like that's disingenuous to the intentions of what they're actually doing here. But at the same time, it feels like
You can tell it's a
Dragon
labor of love that wants to like be a compelling adaptation of the story after a certain point.
Yes, like they up their ambition and they know that like their audience increased so heavily. I mean, like you go back and look at these episodes and they're like 20 million views a piece. And you're like, oh, yeah, that mounting pressure probably became really fucking hard to deal with, especially when the fan base is constantly hounding you that you don't release episodes quickly enough. And they got to end things on their own terms, and they kind of get a chance to sort of polish something that, like, the original Dragon Ball Z is a story that I love, but is so endemic of the problems of basically putting a mangaka in the position that Toriyama was put in and then putting those animators in the position that they were put in, where I don't think that either of those versions of the story are the best versions of themselves purely because of those constraints. And with limitations lifted, you kind of get a window into a world where, oh, this is what this would have looked like if everything was able to percolate a little bit more. And I think that's really valuable because it acts as both parody and criticism and tribute. And it's like, what other thing does that? Like, I don't know many things that suit as many forms as Dragon Ball Z Abridged manages to, and as
It
well as it does either.
it's a really rare thing.
It is. Warts and all. Like that is the reason I wanted to recommend this is because the most valuable thing about this, other than the fact that I do think it's funny and well made, and you really do get to see a group of passionate people just like really put their best foot forward, and like, hearing them talk about like the early beginnings of just again recording shit in their basement and joking about being like, "Hey, wouldn't it be funny if we went to conventions one day? Wouldn't it be funny if we met the voice actors for the actual show one day?" And they did. Chris Sabat said with his own words, he said, "If I die, I want Nick Landis to play Vegeta." Can you fucking imagine just being a silly dude on the internet and then having that like imagine if Stephen King was just like my successor is Jake. I'd be like, and then they actually become professional voice actors. They are in Dragon Ball games. They are in like OVAs and stuff. Like they have been to conventions. They like their dreams were supremely smaller than being like genuinely famous, but they like accomplished their dreams with this. And it's like, damn, that's where else can you see a story like this in reality happen? Because it's not often. It's just awesome to see that this is the kind of thing that can happen. And yeah, it's a rarity, but like it is, I do genuinely think it's kind of beautiful. Like it's just such a great coalescence of wonderful things and genuine determination. Like they clearly worked so hard on all of this and put their best foot forward and they got better. That's the key with DBZ Abridged is that you are watching something become better in real time. You get to witness it evolve. And I think that's better than if something was just as good as it was from the Cell Saga the whole way through. I wouldn't want DBZ Abridged with all of its flaws to be changed at all because you don't get that evolution without it.
I love seeing the evolution. Even if I think my ultimate highlight is the Frieza saga and the Cell saga is a little bit of a dip, I find the evolution interesting and I find the progress that they're making really fun to watch and fun to think about. And I love seeing the passion so clearly shine through as the mission kind of leans in a different direction, but nevertheless commits to, you're right, this kind of weird trifecta of parody, tribute, and critique that nothing else has ever really done before that I
It's
can think of.
it's pretty fucking incredible. And it's like this could have only happened with this insanely specific set of circumstances on this weird platform. And I wanted to bring this to sort of discussion just because it is a counterpoint to the whole Doug Walker thing, because it's easy to be pessimistic about stuff like that. And you see somebody like Doug who's just amassed this like huge amount of success, and you just don't really feel like his heart is in it at a certain point, and that becomes kind of the most depressing thing about it. But then you see these guys, and they do what they do, and then they get to end it, and now they're actually doing Sailor Moon Abridged, which is insanely good, very, very funny stuff so far. And they continue doing Dragon Ball stuff by doing 3D animations that they did as like post-canon, like after the Cell Saga, they sort of do interesting things. Like there's just a little episode of Krillin and Android 18 going out on a date. There's a mini series they have called Hiffle, which is stands for the Home of Infinite Losers, which is all of the villains that get defeated in Dragon Ball dying, going to hell, and being in a summer camp with each other. And it's fucking fantastic. And because they use their own animation, they're not limited to just what the original show was. Like they have like the entire you might actually dig Hiffle because it's you get to see the return of the Ginyu Force. And like
Oh my
there's
God.
just like an episode where like and Guru is also there because they do a twist with him being the villain of Namek a bit, so he's also down there. There's an episode where they play dodgeball and like Cell and Frieza are constantly butting heads because they're like the exact same flavor of narcissist, and like that's cool stuff. Like, I kind of realized it only recently, but like after writing my own stuff, I'm like, oh man, I kind of stole Cell's swag, didn't I? The whole thing where it's like he's all of the things in one thing and thus can psychologically deconstruct all of the heroes because he understands them on a complete biological level. And I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe maybe I unknowingly took a few things here and there, but I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
Remember that time I drank that guy?
That
That
was
was pretty
fucking
weird.
weird. It's the delivery too. Like it's so distinct. You can tell how many like takes that they probably did and how deliveries of certain lines were changed and stuff. And it's like watching this makes me want to become a voice actor, TBH. Like it sounds cool. I would want to hone my craft like these dudes do. And frankly, after watching it, I'm like, you know what? I'm young. I could do it. I don't know. I could be a little ambitious. That's what this fucking platform is for, to just kind of carve your own path and do your shit. It's about getting stronger. Heyo. Power
I
load.
still I still have so many questions about Mr. Popo.
Ooh, man. That I think it's the when Vegeta first sees Mr. Popo and he's just like, what the hell is that? It's like, you know what, man? Same. It's a little I, that was just the kind of that was just a kind of like caricature in anime for a while. Like you just saw that like everywhere. And like Jinx in Pokemon.
They even make a
Jinx,
joke about that
Jinx,
in this.
shut up, bitch. You love it. I think, and also there is like the kind of standout to me of a lot of it is like the episode History of Trunks, which is the Trunks movie, which is like played dead straight. Like
Yeah,
it's funny. It has some really good and very dark jokes in it. The Bulma being like, "So, we'd have to share." And Gohan's just like, yeah, I'm good. She's like, yeah, well, I tried. It's like, oh dear. Oh
dear
jeez.
me.
But I love how like that fucking scene where he finds Gohan dead and they play that Doctor Who music is like haunting. I was like, oh, like some of like they actually have done like I think 10 of like the non-canon DBZ movies. Those are really good. If you are interested in checking this shit out, I would watch their version of the Broly movie, which is their most popular video, I believe. I think that's sitting at like a cool 55 million or something.
Whew.
But yeah, fucking ridiculous, right? Like this was an unstoppable phenomenon. Like in 2016, I remember talking to people I had never spoken to in my life about this. And it was like a weirdly uniting thing. So I wanted to talk about it purely to have a kind of full circle moment and just toss out some appreciation to the folks at Team Four Star because they still like make stuff and it's still really good and they're funny and like you also get you kind of maybe it's a little parasocial but like you see them and it's like oh Scott is a flaming homosexual, which means a lot of those gay jokes play a little bit better in hindsight now. You're like, some of those earlier ones in the Frieza saga could be a little, you're like,
Well, if it isn't Faggoty Andy.
and on the Raggedy Ann. I love, I love to just fucking like, hi. The beleaguered delivery is just, it's so,
The
so
exhaustion that some of these characters can believably convey.
It's it is spectacular stuff. I highly recommend their content. Go check them out. Go watch them. They're great dudes. Seem like very nice. They credit all of the people that they work with and they really do kind of feel like Doug Walker's Tethered of it. It's just like if Channel
Doug
Awesome
Walker's
didn't
tethered
suck, it would
is
be
crazy.
Team Four Star. So, and you know what, Jen? You said you liked Let's Plays at the start of this segment. I have some great news for you that the in-between content they made on their side channel is them doing Let's Plays in character. And it is pretty good.
Oh man, I might
It's
have to get into some of that.
pretty good. So, yeah, that was Dragon Ball Z Abridged. What a fucking weird ass thing. What a
I
weird thing.
I love how weird this is.
Right?
And
It's
despite my
just unique.
I feel like more and less attached to it due to the flaws that I have with it. I'm just
Mhm,
able to like see it as its own thing where it's like,
mhm.
oh yeah, this part of it is really good. This part of it I don't like as much, but it comes together at the end to be
Hmm.
something really impressive. So it's a classic Jen and Jake's Bizarre Fray 4 from me.
Sick. Awesome. That is exactly what I wanted here. It's just, purely on the merit of being unique, honestly. It's just one of those things where I'm glad to be alive when something as interesting as this can be made because beforehand it's really just it's that wouldn't happen. So, cool beans. So,
Yeah.
going from not funny to funny, right back into the serious.
All right.
Now there's
Scores
stakes,
are
baby.
I've got 19. You've got 21. Ascended. Jake now has victory within reach. So what's the move?
Why don't you go first?
All right. So I think the thing that I gotta think about is that this can't be the trump card because I have to get 6 points somehow. So I have to do a good thing now and then really bank on the bad thing being the one that's gonna cinch it. But I want to get as far ahead as I can.
I have faith in you.
All right. This is a hard pick. Tactically and frankly, just emotionally, I'm not really sure where I'm leaning right now in terms of what the best move is going to be. But I think I have something here. It's pretty simple, I'll admit, but it's me. I discovered more about myself and what I love about cinema in a single year than I have the entire rest of my life, and that was in 2020. Because during
Hmm.
the pandemic, all that I would do is I would do schoolwork and I would watch movies all day. I would just pull up a streaming service, find something to watch, and put it on. And my favorite movie that I watched during this period, one that changed my life, and one that in that period of isolation just completely rejuvenated my spirit. One that I know that you haven't seen. And I'm talking, this is like top five Gen
Oh,
movie.
okay. All right, I'm listening.
So this is big. Okay. My recommendation for you is Wim Wenders' classic Wings of Desire.
I have needed to watch this for fucking forever. Awesome. For some fucking reason, I've not seen a Wenders movie. Like, just, I, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know. I
I,
should have by
I'm
now. Why haven't I watched Paris, Texas? I don't fucking know.
I'm
I'm
sticking
dumb.
to as simple as I can get. It's just like, something off of my top movies list that Jake has never seen. It's time. I got to throw one at you,
Gotta
and
have
this is one of
your
them.
answer to last year's trust. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
So, we've not been quiet about the fact that it's been an interesting start to this year. We've had some subversions, some subversions of some subversions, and then again, and that's just how it goes over here at Jen and Jake's Bizarre Fray. We aim to surprise as well as be passionate about stuff. And as much as close as we are to this finish line, as much as I want to hit this button and secure that victory, I can't do it just yet. It's not right. I have to be patient because, I mean, frankly, I'm here to play the long game. But you know what? I will always be honest with you, even when you're not with me. And one thing I'll be honest about is that, I tactically expected better from you. Because, Jen, I don't know if you've read Sun Tzu's The Art of War, but One
God.
classic mistake.
Shut up.
One classic mistake that you make is looking at your enemy, sitting down with them, communing with them, and taking out your revolver, loading it, placing it on the table, and turning your back. It's an act of hubris, Jen. An act of hubris that cannot go unpunished. So I'm grabbing the revolver. Snip. What was that? Did a did a sword of Damocles just fall?
You son of a bitch.
You waited too long, Jen. So we're gonna end where we began. Silent Hill, baby. Let's go back one more time. And just like last year, when we had a movie that recommended that was close to our hearts, and we were joined by a guest, we will also be joined by our friend who is in our Discord channel, Winslow, who will be joining us for the very first time on this channel because they are a Silent Hill fan just like us, and well, they've got a bone to pick, and who could blame them? One day. Next time on Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray, will the boys be embraced by the wings of oblivion or the wings of desire? Find out.